Hello, testing 1, 2, 3.
Hello, Kiet.
Hi.
How are you? Siapa boy?
Yeah, cepat liao. Hello, testing 1, 2, 3.
Hello, Kiet.
Hi.
How are you? That's weird. That was like an echo.
Yeah, cepat liao. Hello, testing 1, 2, 3.
Hello, Kiet.
Hi.
How are you?
Okay, should be fixed already.
How come there's an echo? Did I just hear that or?
No, cause I'm piping the sound from like Chrome into the mic. And then there was a YouTube live stream going on as well.
No. So I
Yeah,
heard it
so
3 times.
dealing with a lot of screens and windows right now.
Well, good thing I logged in 20 minutes before we can fix this.
Yeah.
All right, I better check my. So I went against your advice. I'm gonna use my 100% battery charged AirPod Pros. But don't worry, I have wired headsets here in case we need it.
If yours is the new version or the old version,
New one,
oh, then should be able to last longer than
hopefully.
expected lah.
Last few days, long meetings. I think I wore it for 2-3 hours. Can you see a change in the background?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Can you see Sydney?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Can see the
Just
bridge.
testing. Yeah, this is my fake home. This is my real home. And then this is my fake home. I just discovered virtual backgrounds. All right. Now we got to bring up. Now we got to
For
bring
those who
up.
are here early, yeah, feel free to either unmute or if you want to show your face, can show your face.
We
We
can
just
chit
kind of
chat
like,
before. We can
yeah.
chit chat before people come. Samantha works for COVID-19 Singapore government agency, isn't it? Samantha Yuan.
Yeah, Samantha works at GovTech.
Nice. Trace together. All right, I'm gonna try and can I just try and share screen just to make sure you can see?
Yep.
So the first part of my talk, well, sorry, you start and then you hand over to me, and then during the start of the talk, there's a part where I will just show where I am in Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I'll show things I miss in Singapore.
Okay.
Like Hokkien Mee.
Oh, nice.
And then after that, I will go and start with the slides. So then for this next part, let me just check the slides. So, right. First, I need to share screen on Zoom.
Yeah. See if you can share.
Okay, now I share. This will stop the other caller's screen sharing.
Yeah.
Continue. Okay. So then I'll make sure you can see this one. Share. Okay, let me know if you can see the first slide, design leadership for introverts.
Yep, I can see that.
Then you can see small talk.
Yes.
Small talk. And then the octopus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Then it's working.
Yeah.
I will stop screen sharing now.
Okay.
All right, wait. Don't you hate it when Zoom automatically maximizes the window?
I think you can turn it off, I think.
Is it?
Yeah, in the preference.
All right. Okay, can. I think should be okay. See, now again, maximize. Let's go to preference. General. Enter full screen mode when starting or joining a meeting. Nope. Yeah, it wasn't on to begin with. It's weird. Okay, change my virtual background. Okay.
Hey Tim. It's
Hello,
Sam.
who's that?
I heard you talking to Kate just now, but I was rushing out something, so I couldn't reply.
What were you rushing out?
Think who things low.
Can you hear me? I'm speaking louder now. Can you guys hear me loud and clear? Should I make it louder, softer?
I think it's okay.
Like
Yeah,
that, okay or not?
just nice.
Testing 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, huh?
Yeah.
First time I do remote like that. So
Steady.
remote. Yeah. How many people? Got 8 people. Ah, Nick is here. Nick is some guy in Australia. I don't know. Susan, I know. Vader, don't know. Roy, I don't know. Samantha, don't really know, but kind of know.
I think that's a sign
So,
to talk more.
so you did the Trace Together app? Is that what you do?
I contributed towards the copy, the UX writing, but it's really put together by a bunch of volunteers who stepped away from their day jobs, you know, like working on other government services, and then building Trace Together in about 8 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
I know about the 8 weeks part. What I didn't know, or what I liked was when the news went global, they seem to focus a lot more on how Apple and Google picked up on a new app, but there was almost no mention about Singapore being involved. Is that true?
Yeah, I don't know why. But I think as long
here,
as we look at lifting some of the restrictions, I think that's the end goal. Yeah.
Because right now, if the app, when it's running in the background, it doesn't work, isn't it? It has to be like open.
For Apple.
Oh, is it? So for Android, it's okay.
Android is okay, but Apple has this thing where you you just can't let it run in the background and still, you know, do that Bluetooth ID collecting.
Okay.
So yeah. The rest of the time I look after a bunch of designers and try to grow design rigor. Very exciting.
So
yeah, Kai Sing may be joining as well.
Nice. I haven't seen him in forever. So starting, you share slides, then I'll share slides, and then at the end Q&A, you share slides again.
Q&A, we will be going. We'll be using this, so you can see my screen.
Yeah.
This is the pigeonhole. Then there'll be a Q&A segment that people can start asking questions. Yeah, along the way. For now, actually people can start checking in. We already have like 2 votes.
Oh, wow. So from this point
Yeah.
forward, everything that we say is being live broadcasted onto YouTube.
Yes, there is
Okay, cool.
1 viewer on 2 viewers on YouTube.
Right. That's very good to know.
Yeah, I'm just
Yes,
testing it lah.
lucky I didn't say anything about the government just now.
Mm.
That's why I got put PDPA, you know, at the bottom of the meetup.
Oh, so it's what, 6:51 in Singapore.
Hello, San.
8:51. Hello, hello.
Hi.
Yes. We are
That-
watching you. I will unmute again, okay? I will mute it now.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, be good. Have a good show.
How to enlarge?
Pigeonhole. That's like what, Slido?
Yeah, kind of like a Slido-ish platform.
Nice.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Caleb.
Hello.
Caleb works at the same company as I. They were supposed to have a team meeting tonight, but we said let's skip the team meeting and maybe come here if you prefer.
Nice.
Matteo should also be joining shortly.
Oh, nice.
Those who are working with Tim, have you all seen this talk that he gave previously?
No, I think first time.
First time, huh?
Mm.
Yep, so if you all are seeing my screen, there's a audience check-in, kind of like an entry survey that you can actually give it a go. Just scan with your phone or go to this pigeonhole.at on your browser and just enter IxDA. Then there are 2 parts actually. For those who are, this is just to see what kind of demographics do we have here. But for those who are in Singapore, I'm sure we have just entered the extended circuit breaker period, right? Some call it PCB, which is prolonged circuit breaker. You can also tell us how you feel about it. For those who are in Australia who are not really in the lockdown, I'm not sure what is the kind of situation there. Is it
Well, I can
very
speak about Australia. Other people can chime in for UK and Poland. Australia, at this stage, not as many cases as Singapore. We probably went into much more stricter circuit breaker restrictions maybe about 2-3 weeks ago. I think we're starting to see a lot of benefits.
Yeah, the UK.
But Singapore, yeah, sorry, Caleb, you go.
Oh, sorry, no, I was to say, yeah, the UK is full lockdown, so I don't know if that's similar to Singapore. So we leave the house once a day for a quick 1-hour walk, trying to be as far away from people as possible. And then we've done a food shop for the last month and a half every 2 weeks, and that's it. So you don't leave the house other than those sort of 2 things, but at least it's sunny.
Okay, that's like fruitful. Definitely a long fruitful. Okay, we'll come back to this shortly. All right, so there's about 6 other viewers on YouTube Live as well. Because this Zoom account that we have can only handle about 100 people. And I think there's like 150 who repeat, but usually just like a physical meetup, people will drop out as well. So just as a precaution, we have a YouTube live stream. It's a first time that we are trying it, so not sure how it goes as well. Okay.
First time I'm doing
okay.
a remote meetup as well, so let's see
Yeah.
how we go.
Right. For those who are here early, there's still a couple of minutes to go. Feel free to unmute, say hi if you want to show your video. And let's see how is your home light or background light. If you want to use a virtual background, feel free to do so as well, if your laptop supports that. Okay, otherwise, let's give you a couple of minutes. And just to test, do you all hear that sound?
Yeah, you rang a bell.
Right, okay, cool. Testing out some soundboard. Okay, let's see. Do we have? This is the awkward silence, like any other meetups where you enter the room and everyone is like very shy and
Isn't the meeting for the introverts?
True.
Is there a picture in the background from, oh yeah, it is, from this year's conference in February
yes,
in
yes,
Milan?
it is the I took it from the Flickr account during
Yeah.
the opening party.
So Kate and I, for background, we were both in Milan, in Italy in February for that conference. And
Yeah.
we both, I think, came back to our respective countries just before, I think, the worst happened in Italy. So very, very blessed, very lucky.
Yeah, and this background is you actually. No, you can see. It was from one of your
It's creepy.
slides.
Oh yeah.
Okay, some chat coming through. Okay, for those who are here, if you have not checked in yet, you can just use your phone, scan a QR code, or just go to this URL, pigeonhole.at, and enter IxDA. So you should be brought to this check-in bit. This is also where you can ask questions later on. So feel free to share about which role kind of best describes you. I think we have quite a bit of mid to senior designers in the room today. Necessary. That's true.
For me, what was the nicest, well, what was clever was really just even giving the whole thing a name, just calling it a circuit breaker.
I think the name was not intentional. It was just being picked up by everyone else.
I think the name that people are using, well, at least in Australia, is lockdown. Which sounds a lot more permanent, I guess, than circuit breaker.
But of course, there are a lot more people making funny jokes about this circuit breaker because the short form is CB, right? So for those who are Singaporean and you are local, you know that CB is a bad word.
Curse word, yeah.
Yeah. And then because it's COVID-19, right? So they added COVID-19 circuit breaker that becomes CCB. Yeah. And then now, due to this extended one, they made it PCB. Yeah. So Singaporeans are all very creative with these acronyms.
I've never heard that one before. It's quite funny.
Yeah.
Since we're broadcasting live, I'll explain it to the others after the live broadcast.
Yeah. 7:02. I think we have a mix of people coming in from YouTube Live, about 11 of them. And then here in Zoom, there's about 28. Yeah, I think we can get started just to make it efficient for those who came by early. Right, so for those who are here, feel free to do this audience check-in. Share with us which role is kind of best describes you, and then how do you feel about this whole extended circuit breaker. After the talk, we will probably just share the results and see what do we have. Along the way, if you have questions, you can use this Q&A section to ask questions as well. And of course, if you are in the Zoom, there is a chat. If you are in the YouTube Live, there's also a chat. There's just like way too many things to monitor. So please pardon if I don't respond. Some group norms just to sort of help our I think feel free to mute yourself. I think it's only polite to just keep yourself muted unless you want to share something. You can also ask questions by opening up your mic. I think that's fine. Then if you would like to send a message to the chat, if you have something to say, respect others, really be nice. If you do need to leave the session, unfortunately, we cannot say bye. You can say bye in the chat, but or if you want to leave silently, there's no judgment. So don't worry about that. A little bit about IxDA. We have been around since about 2003. This is all the different local groups in IxDA. There's over about 200 of them right now. And then in Singapore, we started in 2011. One of those 200 over local groups have been doing quite a bit of meetups. And last month was the first time that we tried something virtual, right? Due to all this virtual COVID-19 pandemic. And I think it has been pretty interesting to do it virtually. There's probably a bit more engagement. And I also felt that I was learning more than hosting it physically, right? Where you always get distracted. We are very honored to have Tim. As I mentioned in the meetup description, I met Tim actually in 2011 when we did the launch party for IxDA. Then Tim was around. That was the only time that I met him. And then thereafter he went to Australia, and that's it. I only saw him back like during the conference in Milan, which was in February. And we said, hey, this talk, why not you want to try giving it in Singlish version, right? Since you miss Singapore. So here we are. Yeah. Yourself, and then we can start the presentation.
Cool.
Yeah.
Are we ready to go?
Yep, we are ready to go.
So, hello everyone. Thank you, Chit, for the opportunity to share my talk with my fellow Singaporeans. So, I've given this talk a few times, not many times, but a few times. But this is the very first time that I'm giving it remotely. And it's also the first time that I'm actually giving it to an audience that is primarily Singaporeans. And I do feel incredibly proud because when you live overseas like I do, you're far from home and it's weird, but somehow I feel like there's a deeper sense of connection to my country, Singapore, than when I was living over there, which is why I'm wearing my Singapore soccer jersey over here. So before I dive right into a talk, I just wanted to share two things with you. First thing I want to do was to maybe show you a little bit of Sydney, where I live. And then maybe second thing I'll show you is a few things that I miss from Singapore. And we're going to try and do this with the magic of virtual backgrounds in Zoom. So let me know if you can see this, right? So this isn't where I live right now. This is just a virtual background. This is where I live right now. But this is where I am. This is where I am. This is Sydney, Australia. Most of you would recognize the iconic Sydney Opera House, Sydney Harbour Bridge. This is a park that's near where I live. This is the purple tree that you see behind you is called the jacaranda tree. For 3 seasons in a year, it looked like a normal tree. You wouldn't even be able to tell what that tree looks like, whether it's a jacaranda tree. But for 1 month, every 12 months in spring, they come into bloom, and it's this lovely shade of purple. It's called the jacaranda tree. This is a picture from a local market that is near where I live. It's called Orange Grove Markets. Obviously, this was taken pre-lockdown, but it's a really nice local market. You can go there, get coffee, pastries, you get fresh produce from the markets. So that's just a little bit of places near where I live. Now, next thing I wanted to show you was a few things that I dearly miss from Singapore. And one of the things that I really do miss is this. For those who do not know what this is one of my favorite dishes in Singapore. It is called Hokkien Mee. You do not know how hard it is to find an authentic Hokkien Mee in Sydney, Australia. I've been in Sydney, Australia for 7 years. It took me 5 years to find the perfect Hokkien Mee in Sydney, Australia. I'm not even going to tell you how much it costs. It costs too much in Singapore. But it was made by a Singaporean that's lived in Australia for 40 years. It took me 5 years to find a really good, authentic Hokkien Mee. I also miss my local MRT station, Yio Chu Kang MRT station. This was my nearest MRT station in Singapore. This was my local kopitiam when I was back in Singapore. For those who don't know, this was in the north of Singapore in Jalan Selasih. It's got the best wonton noodles in Singapore. I also miss places like Katong. I love the old shop houses in Katong. I miss how they look like. We used to go there every other weekend. And I also miss Chom Chom. Kit, can you still see my screen?
Yes, I can actually stop sharing because I realized when I was sharing the screen, it was taking too much what is that, real estate, and should let them see more of your photo in the background instead.
That's okay, man. No worries.
First time.
So, and then we move back to Sydney, Australia. And then now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just share with you my slides. And then let me know when you can see my screen, okay? All right, let me know when you can see design leadership for introverts. Can you see my slide, design leadership for introverts? Cool.
Yeah.
Yes,
Excellent.
yeah.
Excellent. So that was just a very short tour of the things that I miss in Singapore and where I am based in Sydney, Australia. So for all the introverts, extroverts, and ambiverts in the room, my name is Tim Yeo, and for the last 40 years, I've been an introvert. And this is what introversion feels like to me. Small talk is really hard for me. So I grew up in Singapore, and for people who have lived in Asia or traveled to Asia, you will probably agree. People back home, we don't really talk to random strangers on the street. Most of us will be reading a book or staring at our phones, like normal people do. Instead, when I moved to Sydney, Australia 7 years ago, a Western society, obviously this was pre-lockdown, but you could be in a queue, you could be waiting for a bus, a tram or train, or even the toilet. Somehow small talk just creeps up on you when you least expect it. So moving here from Singapore, I had to learn how to talk to people about the weather, asking people how they are, what their plans are for the weekend. In the beginning, when people asked me how I was, I actually told them. And then I quickly realized that I was probably oversharing, or they were not that interested to begin with. So the pro tip here is for people who don't realize, in Western societies, at least in my experience, when people ask how you are, really what they're doing is they're just saying hi. And the response that I've learned to give was really good yourself. If they were really interested in how you were, they'll ask again. Because for me, too much social interaction is exhausting. Even if it's social interactions are ones that I like with friends and family. So at a meetup like this one in real life, sometimes I just need to step away and have some quiet time to recharge. Now, a few myths about introversion that I would like to dispel. Firstly, introversion is not about being shy. Being shy is a fear of social judgment. Even an extrovert can be shy. Rather, introversion and extroversion is about how we respond to stimulation, where stimulation can be social interactions, noisy environments, or working in an open plan office, for example. So for an introvert to operate at their best, they require an environment that has less stimulation, and vice versa for extroverts. Next, introversion and extroversion is not an absolute. How an introvert or an extrovert behaves depends on context, environment, and the people that are around you at the time. No one is truly an introvert or an extrovert all of the time. Now, in 2012, Susan Cain gave a TED Talk called The Power of Introverts. Susan inspired my talk. She said that when she was growing up, she felt like her quiet, introverted way was wrong. Wrong. Just imagine that. Imagine growing up feeling like the way that you are is wrong. She also said that we live in a world where the extrovert ideal is desired. And as a design leader, this certainly feels true to me, because when people paint a picture of what they expect a leader to look like, it often looks something like this. A leader commands the center of attention. A leader is outgoing, is talkative, is dominant. A leader is able to deliver charismatic speeches, rallying large audiences at a drop of a hat. A leader is, in essence, an extrovert. Now, I am not saying that this is a bad way to lead. I'm saying that this is not the only way to lead, and certainly not all the time. Which then begs a question, right? If we can accept that the world is the way that it is, a world that desires extroverts, then how can we as introverted design leaders operate successfully within it? If you are an introvert and you are happy in an individual contributor role, you can probably get away by focusing on pushing pixels. But if you want to lead, especially people leadership, then your pixels are now people. And you can't push people the same way that you push pixels. So how can an introverted design leader succeed? Now, the answer to this question is not be more extroverted. I've tried that, it's lame, it always felt unnatural. Instead, the techniques that I'll be sharing have allowed me to remain my true authentic self. Or in other words, how can we use our introverted ways not as a flaw, not as if there was something wrong with us, but to use our introverted ways as a superpower? Now, I'll be sharing these techniques around 4 areas. They are meetings, team selection, social media, and then lastly, networking. Everybody loves meetings, right? Can't have enough meetings. Now, by far, my favorite type of meeting has to be one-on-ones. As an introvert, you only have to focus on one person, not a group of people that's competing for attention. More importantly, it is away from the public eye. People are more open to being wrong when no one else is looking. They are also more open to tell you what they really think when nobody else is listening. Also, if you have a difficult this subject to discuss, you can take a walk or meet over lunch or coffee. You get to engage on a more personal level, away from business and behaviors as usual. Changing where you have your meeting can change the person's behavior and the outcome of the meeting. Next, high stakes meetings. A high stakes meeting is one where an ultimate decision has to be made. It's a go or no go decision. Your boss is there. Chances are your boss's boss is there too. And the room is full of people with strong opinions and loud voices. So as an introvert, what do you do? Now, I've been to a few of these high stakes meetings, and I think there's a secret to them. And the secret is this. People who attend these meetings have most likely made up their minds already before the meeting itself. So the tactic here is to influence the outcome before the meeting, not during. Now let's think about the audience here for a second, right? High stakes meetings usually involve senior executives. Senior executives usually have more experience. Senior executives also tend to have more things to focus on and less time to make decisions. Also, very few single decisions will truly break a company. It's usually a series of poor decisions that will break a company. Therefore, senior executives will lean onto their prior experience in order to help them make decisions quickly. Now, once these decisions are solidified in their minds, in my experience, it's very hard to change them. So what do? Well, you have one-on-ones, hours, days, weeks, or even months before the meeting. How far in advance depends on how high the stakes are. The goal here is to influence their thinking before they've made up their minds. You get to explain your position, your rationale. You can also ask what they think. And if it's a one-on-one, people are more open to being wrong or to just say, I don't know. Think of it like steering a container ship, right? A container ship, I didn't know this before, but a container ship takes 20 minutes to come to a full stop. So if you want to change the course of a container ship, you have to start steering early, really early. Now, switching gears to a different topic, team selection. Now, when it comes to hiring, I've always tried to hire for our team's weaknesses. And as an introvert, you are going to need some social butterflies. Work is a team sport. And having social butterflies will help you build bridges across teams, across the company, and across our industry. And these connections will help extend the circles of influence and impact that we designers have on the work that we do. It does not mean that every team member has to be a social butterfly. It also does not absolve you, the design leader, from the need to build your own relationships. But it certainly wouldn't hurt if this trait came very naturally to some of your people that you can lean on when you've maxed out on social interactions. Next, choosing managers. Now, in 2011, Wharton's Professor Adam Grant and his co-authors wanted to answer this seemingly simple question. Do teams always operate more effectively under extroverted leadership? Their research concluded the following. If your team is made up of proactive members, an introverted leader can get better results. If your team is made up of passive members, an extroverted leader can get better results. And the reason was this: when you pair an extroverted leader with a proactive team, an extroverted leader can feel threatened, as if their top-down vision was being questioned. They may be less receptive to proactive ideas, and then consequently, the team members become less proactive. On the other hand, introverted leaders tend to be more receptive to bottom-up ideas, more willing to listen if a better idea emerges. Consequently, team members become more proactive. So when choosing a manager, think about your people and what kind of leader will help you get the best out of them. And then now we turn to our attention to social media. Now, in my opinion, social media is a gift from the introvert gods. Before, public speaking was one of the best ways for us to broadcast our thoughts and ideas. But then we introverts, we do not respond as well to public speaking as extroverts do. So with social media, we introverts can reach across continents, across time zones, all on our own terms, from behind the safety of our screen, just like now. So if you wanted to argue with Jared Spool about why everyone is not a designer, you can just tweet him. All of a sudden, all of the people that we respect are right there at our fingertips. And if you are an introvert like me, a handful of deep, meaningful conversations mean so much more than plenty of shallow, forgettable ones. Also, if these conversations happen in public channels, they represent your thought leadership. You are what you write, share, and tweet. What you say and how you say it represent who you are. Now we arrive at every introvert's favorite activity, networking. Oh, how much do we introverts love networking? For those who cannot see, I'm rolling my eyes. Networking is one of those activities that somehow magically combines all of the things that we introverts do not enjoy. And it mostly happens like this, right? You walk into a room full of strangers. You grab a drink and then you stand awkwardly on the side, quietly scanning the room, hoping that somebody will make eye contact with you. You see this group over there, right? The cool kids, they are standing in a circle, shoulder to shoulder. You don't see a way to break into that group. And then you see others just like you. They're just scattered around the perimeter, but you dread having to go and then make small talk again. So you just stand there with your drink in hand, you take out your phone, and then you pretend to look busy. For the people that are on the call that are introverts, does any of this sound familiar to you? Now, clearly, networking does not come naturally to me, but I knew it was important for me as a leader to extend my network. Because for me, the goal of networking is resourcefulness. It is to grow the pool of people that I know who I can help and who can help me. It's something that I needed to do to become a better leader. So how do I do it? Here are a few techniques. Do your pre-work about people that you like to meet. Now, some events like meetups or conferences, they will have a list of attendees. Go through the list, pick out people that you like to meet. You can stalk them online and say hi to them on Twitter or LinkedIn. That way, when you do meet up in person, when we're allowed to meet up in person, it feels less awkward because you are no longer strangers. You've already introduced yourselves online. This next technique is a bit of a Jedi mind trick. What if, when you were networking, you pretended it's user research? Now, by pretending that it's user research, a room full of strangers suddenly turns into a room full of opportunities to learn about people. Who are they? What do they do? Why are they here? What do they want to get out of this event? Maybe I can help them. Maybe they can help me. Through this lens, small talk questions come naturally. Just remember not to ask questions all the time because it will feel like an interrogation rather than a conversation. Now, when you're networking, make sure you have some measurable output. It might be exchanging business cards, contact details, or adding the person on LinkedIn or Twitter. Remember, the goal of networking is to become more resourceful by growing the pool of people that you know. You can't do that if you don't know how to contact the person again when you need them. Next, have an exit script. Sometimes you're talking to this person and conversations come to a natural end. We just naturally run out of things to talk about. So what you must know is that this is totally okay. Rather than awkward silences, have an exit script so that you can leave and start another conversation with someone else more interesting. Practice, practice, practice your exit script. Repeat it until it comes naturally. And it could sound something like this, right? Let's say the person's name is John. You can say, hey, John, it was very nice to meet you. I'm gonna go circulate, if that's okay. Do you have a card, or maybe I can add you on Twitter or LinkedIn? Something like that. And who says networking has to be a group activity? Reach out to people that you like to meet and arrange to catch up with them over coffee to talk shop. One-on-ones are a great way to get to know someone better. Now, in closing, I want to bring our attention back to Susan Cain's talk and the extrovert ideal. The world may continue to favor extroverts as leaders, but I hope that I convince you that we introverts have our place to play as effective leaders as well. This talk was never meant to be introverts versus extroverts. I think we all have a role to play. And I hope that the techniques that I've shared can be put to good use by introverts and extroverts alike. Introversion is not a flaw. Introversion is not a disability. It's a superpower. And I hope that you will let your superpower shine. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I hope many of you here are nodding in agreeable. If you realize there are some reactions that you could use, like clap, like thumbs up, right? I'm just gonna take over the screen.
All right, I'm stop sharing.
All right, yes. Okay. And as mentioned earlier, there is a Q&A segment. So if you'd like to ask any questions, feel free to scan the QR code or go to pigeonhole.at and then enter the passcode IxDA. Should be able, let's see what's the kind of results that we have here. Oh, so there's a bit more of a mid to senior designers in the room. Okay. Pretty much the same, didn't really change. Okay, see if there's any Q&A.
I'm just looking at the chat that's coming on in Zoom. I think there's an An Farm. that's recommending the book Quiet. I've read that book. That book is also by, excuse me, it's by Susan Cain. I drew a lot of inspiration from that particular book. For any introverts that are on the call, if you haven't read that book gave me a lot of really good insights into introversion, and the main thing it really made me feel was that I'm not really alone. There are a lot of people out there that are just like me.
Right. Anyone has any questions, or if you'd like to just unmute and ask, I think that's fine as well.
Mine was less of a question, more of a, I think that's probably the most useful way I've ever seen someone break down networking. I think introvert or extrovert, sometimes the idea of networking is pretty daunting and not particularly attractive. Whereas if you frame it, especially as a designer, as a task you're used to, that's a really good way of making it seem much more worthwhile, or yeah, output driven. I thought that was brilliant.
A lot of those lessons, those were hard lessons that A, either learned from experience, or B, learned from other introverts that were struggling to network.
And
Still not perfect yet. Still not perfect yet, though. I'm still to be honest, I still find myself sometimes at larger meetups and conferences. Even Kit at the last IxDA conference in February in Milan, there were times when I was still that person that was lurking around the corner, and yeah, it just gets too much, too many people, you max out, and it still happens. So yeah, it's just part of me. I just learned how to deal with it much better.
Yeah, the choices are the phone or food table, but if you go to too many and you just keep going to the food table, that's a slippery slope.
So Kate, you got this question here. I'm seeing votes coming up. Maybe you start from the first one, right? What about introversion feels like a superpower for you? I'll try and answer this question this way. I think for a very long time, I felt like introversion was more of a flaw. I tried for a long time to be more of an extrovert, because that was the ideal that people around me, that society, that workplaces, there was always that model where people put on a pedestal saying, this is what a leader should look like, right? And in some shape or form, I've always felt like I wanted to be a leader, that I was a leader, but I was not measuring up to that pedestal of what my picture of leadership was. And really what changed was when I kind of changed my frame and I said, you know what, the way that I am is okay. Maybe I should just focus on the things that I do well, and how can I make those things that I do well as a strength. So for me, it's really about focusing on the way that I do things, what I do well, and instead of viewing them as flaws, just saying, how can I make that a strength? Because what we do well as introverts, perhaps extroverts, again, this is not introverts versus extroverts, right? But really, how is it that I can focus more on my strengths rather than seeing them as weaknesses? I'm not sure if that answers your question, but that's my take on your question. I'm looking at number 4 votes from Anonymous. How do you respond to being called into sudden team meetings without any preparation? I don't know. Maybe one way is to just say no. Maybe, I mean, okay, the way that I work is really, for me as a practice, every meeting has to have an agenda, right? That's a practice. If people send you a meeting invite, I'm assuming it's a meeting invite they're receiving. If there is no agenda on the meeting, one habit that I have is to then go back and say, hey, what's the agenda? What do you want to go through? I think sometimes we end up in meetings where you just don't know where this meeting is going. And then people call meetings all the time, but sometimes meetings are not the most effective way to get things done. So one way that you structure a meeting and help you make effective use of your time is really just having agenda to structure the discussion so that you can really make good use of people's time. So my response will be, if people send you a meeting invite and they don't tell you what's the agenda, then just go back and ask them, like, what do you want to talk about? Maybe you can have a different way of getting to the same outcome, but not having to meet. That's typically how I respond. Just going back and asking them, so what do you discuss? What do you all get out of the meeting? Maybe the people that were invited to the meeting were not the right people. Maybe there were other people that needed to be there. So my first response is really, what's the agenda? What do you all get out of that meeting? Hopefully that answers your question. So I'm looking at the second one, 3 votes from the next one up. How do you lead your team? How big is your team? So that really depends on which team, right? So in my experience, in the last 7 years in Australia, I've started 2 design teams. One was at a company called OzForex or OFX. They do international money transfers. Second team that I started was at Prosper, which is business loans. That team was, by the time I left, about 10 people. And then the third team is the company I'm at now. So today we are a team of 5 designers. I didn't start that team from scratch. Some of them are on the call right now, but a lot of designs on the team were already there when I started the role. I started this role on the 1st of April, which is about 3 weeks now. But a lot of designers that are there have already been there for a while. So to answer your question, how big? My current team is 5 people. How do you lead your team? That's a very broad question. I hope that I lead my team well. I certainly try. Personally, as an individual, I never enjoyed being micromanaged. I believe that people should own their work and they should see their work through. So certainly I give a lot of the designers on our team their responsibility to carry their work through and to be responsible and accountable for the work that they do. That is how I like to be led. That is how I also lead the team that I work with. I hope that answers your question. If you have a more specific question about how I lead a team, I'm very happy to answer it. And then we have a question from Kai Seng. For those on the call that don't know Kai Seng, I've known Kai Seng for how many years, Kai Seng? Over 20 years, isn't it? It's been a long time. Kai Seng and I went to college together. So how do you speak truth to power? Wow. How do you speak truth? Let me read this again. How do you speak truth to power or raise difficult topics to a person of power as an introverted leader? That's a good question. I'll just turn back to a piece of advice that I shared earlier, right? A lot of times, I think people are more willing to let their guard down and to tell you what they really think if they are not in front of an audience, right? So I think in Western cultures, but certainly in Asian cultures, there's this whole notion where people want to save face. They don't want to be embarrassed in front of an audience. So oftentimes, if you want to have an honest conversation with someone, the best way I found to do it is to do it one-on-one. You know, when you have a one-on-one, right, it's just me and the other person, right? And all you have is just the 2 of you having a conversation. If you want to say, you are more likely, in my opinion, and in my own personal experience, I've had more honest conversations with people one-on-one because there's nobody else watching. It's just you and the other person. So again, speaking the truth, this really depends on who you are. It depends on the relationship you have with that person. Politics can sometimes come into play of this. But really, my personal preference is to work in an organization and with people that are less political. So, I mean, it's hard, right? Because when you do work in an organization that feels very political, and I've had that own experience before, people may not always speak the truth. People may say things in order to get the way that they want, rather than tell you what they really think. So it's not a really easy question to answer. I think it really depends on where you're working, the people that you're working with. But I know where I prefer to work. I prefer to work in a place where I can speak my mind, I prefer to work in a place where people can tell you what they really think. I like to work in a place where people are not afraid to be wrong, that they're open to tell you what they really think, not in a rude way, right? But just to be honest, so that you can try and do the best job that you can for your business and for your customers. So hopefully I've answered your question, Kai Sing. I'm going to move on to the next one, right? So the next question we have here, how would you manage the bias expectations between the differences of introverts and extroverts? Okay, let me try and answer this question this way, right? So in meetings, for example, you can't choose who you have a meeting with. And naturally, in some meetings, there'll be introverts, there'll be extroverts, there will be ambiverts who are somewhere in between. So one of the things that I do try and encourage, it feels weird to be saying this, but as a moderator, as a facilitator of a discussion, you hold the microphone, you get to control that conversation. You get to choose as a facilitator or the moderator who gets airtime. So one way that I've tried to manage that bias between introverts and extroverts, at least in the meeting setting, is to somehow, pass the virtual mic. Like as a moderator or facilitator, one of the things that I try to do is to observe who is quiet, who is talking too much, who looks like they have a look on their face like they want to say something, but are not saying it. And I try to make them all feel comfortable that, you know what, it's okay. If you got nothing to say, I can pass the mic to you. You can say, no, I'm okay. Don't need to say anything. We can move on. But one thing that I certainly try to do as a facilitator or moderator in the meeting is to actually pass the microphone. And if you hold the microphone is power, right? You can actually say, thank you, I've heard what you have to say, but I also want to give this other person a chance to speak their mind. So what do you think? So if you are in a meeting setting, one way that you can actually balance that that bias or that power dynamic between extroverts and introverts is to play that virtual or fake microphone thing. Just pretend that you're passing the microphone around so that you give different people a chance to have a voice. Now I'm going to go to the next question, Kit. So next one here is from Lloyd. What are 3 top technical skills a design leader should possess to lead a team? Wow. Don't know. I'm going to come back to that question. I'm going to think about that question and then I'll come back to that one, okay? Let's find another question. How do you deal with expectations of people expecting you to voice out your comments in meetings? How do you deal? Okay, so I'll try and answer this question this way, right? So one thing I believe is that if you don't voice out your opinion, if you just keep quiet in a meeting, for example, and even though inside you disagree, if you don't voice out what you think, you don't buy into it. So I'll give you an example. You might be in a meeting, a lot of people are talking about different things. The meeting seems to steer towards this decision, right? And let's assume that where this decision is going to, you don't agree. Now, what's going to happen after the meeting? What's going to happen after the meeting is everyone is going to go towards the decision because it seems like everyone is agreeing. You sit in that meeting, you clearly don't agree where this is going, and then you keep quiet. And then they go with that decision, that decision doesn't work out. And then you sit back and you say, yeah, look, I told you so. I thought so. I didn't say anything. But look, you've decided to take that decision. I didn't take part in the decision. And look, you're wrong. I was right. I was quietly right inside, but I didn't say anything, right? So if you don't voice out your opinion in the meeting, you don't buy in. And what's the impact? The impact is that your teammates that were in that meeting, they just suddenly went and they took this decision that ended up being wrong. So why it's important to voice out your opinion in a meeting is that if you don't voice out, you don't buy in. And then when you don't buy in, that breeds a lot of different bad habits. Like you are now playing your odds. You are almost saying, let's just watch how these guys turn out. Your teammates, these are your teammates, right? Let's just see how these guys do. And if they're wrong, then, you know, I can say, I told you so. But then the impact really is that all of us fail. You know, you yourself fail because if you saw your teammates going down this wrong path that you thought was wrong and you don't voice your opinion, then you've also failed your team. Because if you said something, maybe you could have steered the conversation to a position where that decision could have been right. So hopefully that answers your question. It's just recognizing that you have to voice your opinion, because if you don't, then, you know, if you don't voice your opinion, you yourself don't buy in. All right, let's look at another question.
I think there's this maybe another top 3 technical skill. Is this being covered?
Yeah, that one don't know. I'm still thinking about that top 3 technical skills.
Mm.
All right, let's keep going. How do you push yourself? I saw that one. I think got 2 votes. How do you push yourself to be more vocal? To be more vocal. How do you push yourself to be more vocal in meetings? How do you push yourself? So I'll tell you how I push myself to be more vocal, right? So if I walk into a room full of strangers, it can feel very awkward, especially if it's people that I don't know. But at least in a work context, right? I have the opportunity before the meeting to actually get to know people one-on-one. So the benefit of this is when I get to know people before the meeting on a one-to-one basis, then it doesn't feel like they are strangers anymore. I kind of know them already. And for me, at least personally, I don't know if this is whether it's an introversion or extroversion thing, but the fact is that if I feel like I know the other person, then I can relax more. I can open up more. I can be more vocal. So if you find yourself in a position where you don't feel like you're very vocal, maybe that is because you don't feel like you're ready to open up to that person. So what I would do in this scenario is actually get to know those people, maybe before the meeting, maybe go out for coffee or lunch, get to know them as individuals to a point where you feel comfortable, to a point where you feel like you can tell people what you really think. Okay, next question.
Yeah, maybe a last question.
Last question. Wow, pressure. Okay, I'm gonna quickly scan all of the questions, right, before I pick the question. I'm sorry for the person that asked, Lloyd, for you that asked that top 3 technical skills. I might come to that question after. I don't have an immediate answer in mind, but after, feel free to reach out to me. We can probably chat after that. But let me quickly scan the rest of the questions right here. Do you often spend time socializing? Yes, okay, let's answer that one. So the question let's pick is, do you often spend time socializing with your team after hours, eat lunch with your teammates? So right now during lockdown, the obvious answer is no. I'm not breaking any laws. My teammates are in different countries. One is in the UK, one is in Poland, one is in Australia. But frankly, for the last month and a half, I have not met any of them face to face. I think during normal times, I do find personally that sharing a meal together, it's actually a really great way to get to know people and just break the ice and get to know people as individuals. There's just something very primal or something really natural about sharing a meal together that helps you lower that guard and lower that barrier. You don't even have to be talking about work. I think it's certainly one way that you can socialize and get to know people while you're eating a meal. That's my own personal experience. And again, getting to know your teammates, it might be people in your functional team, like with other designers, or it could be with non-designers, people in different parts of your company, right? The common thing here is that we all have to eat, and then most of us will actually like the food that we're eating, right? So eating and food is really a good equalizer. And I find that to be a really good way to actually break bread and really get to know people as individuals. And hopefully that will translate to the work that you do. Hopefully that will open you guys up to have a lot more honest conversations, to see each other as human beings, and then come together as a team and try and accomplish a piece of work together.
All right, thanks a lot for sharing all these beautiful insights and tips. These are like sound effects I must play a bit. Right, thank you. Okay, I'm just gonna stop no, not stop the screen. Let me bring your attention to a few things. So, I guess there are probably two things that I would like to share, already been shared. One is definitely this Design for Good kind of like hackathon challenge thing, organized by the Design Business Chamber. Kai Sing is still around, maybe? Kai Sing, you want to share anything about it? I know there's an extension that has just happened. Okay, maybe too sudden to bring him up on stage. Yeah, they just recently extended the deadline, so it is no longer 22nd. I think until end of this week, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. Okay. So if you have any great ideas, do submit them. I think there's a $20,000 seed money to. Oh, Kai-Sing say kids very noisy. Okay. Okay, and then there is also the Good Design Research organized by the National Design Singapore Council, which is due in end of the month as well, 30th April. And yeah, if anyone of you have some great ideas that you like to spend your COVID-19 circuit breaker time well, can help, you can participate, right? Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. And just as a closing bit, I would like to actually take a screenshot or group photo since we can't be in person, right? So I mean, for those who don't mind to share the video, I give some time for people to unshare their. Yeah, we could take a group photo with your interesting virtual background. Hokkien Mee, yes. I think there's a limit lah, of like 40 old people, but it's okay. We only have like 30 plus. Oh, Kai Sing is there with the daughter. Right. For the rest who are ready, 1, 2, 3. Does it work? Yes. Okay, it works. Yeah. All right. So that's the end of this IxDA virtual meetup. I hope you all have learned a lot as much as I do. It's been great to see you again, team. Take care and stay safe out in Sydney. For the rest, I think there are many others who are some in Europe, some in other places. Take care as well. Stay safe. Yeah, for those in Singapore, there's no bubble tea, there's no McDonald's. It's very sad, but no choice lah, huh? Yeah. All right, so we'll probably see you all back in May as well with another meetup virtually online. And take care and stay safe then. Right, bye.
Thanks for organizing, Kit.
No problem. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah. Bye.